Hola, la internetado. That's about as far as Spanish has got me. Welcome to another issue of the Ghostlight Social, a live edition, twice in a row, which is quite strange. Recently, we don't seem to have done this in ages. You know the score. We get creative people together. We talk about stuff. We raise our hopes and we dash our fears. And me and Lee argue. Kind of.
We don't argue, do we?
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Brilliant.
Yeah. How are you, Lee?
It's gold. Do you know what? Actually, Mike, to be fair, I'm pretty good. I mustn't grumble about anything.
Excellent.
When when you're thinking you haven't got any work, and then you think you've got some work, and then you find out that actually COVID Mark III's coming along, and you think I'm now not going to have any work, but now it seems like I have got work, so it's fine.
Oh, good.
And everyone's healthy.
Yeah, that's the important thing, isn't it?
And how are you doing?
It's been a very weird week for me.
Right.
Um,
Is this a quick weird week, or is it a grab a drink and strap in?
Have a drink. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, that I've been making the most of the opportunities that organisations have been throwing at people. So I entered the Writers Academy, and I've entered the Street Voices, and I entered the BFI Directors Workshop, all of which just went, nah, thanks. Which is, it's really good when you're, an aspiring writer and director for everybody to go, I don't like anything you're doing. Which, to a lesser human, would be something to kind of be despondent about. Whereas,
Absolutely.
along with a lot of these kind of things, so like the BFI and Film Hub North they were running the Directors Workshop, and as it's London Film Festival going on, which was part of the kind of the reason behind the Scratch Me stuff. They've been doing a lot of kind of webinars. So yesterday I was very privileged to be on a Zoom with Mark Gatiss from League of Gentlemen, Sherlock,
Absolutely,
Dracula, which was fantastic to spend an hour and a bit in his company talking about stuff. I've got another one coming up tomorrow, then I've got one next week, and things just seem to be kind of... Oh, and I've spent like the best kind of few days... Now, I was never a fan of Aaron Sorkin because all the cool kids went, it's just duologues. He just masturbates duologues and it's shit. And so I always went, yeah, it's shit in it because I want to join in and be, part of the cool kids. But then I've been listening to his masterclass, and that guy is an utter genius. He is so brilliant in his approach to story, in his approach to starting anything, to see, and everything basically that comes out of his mouth is pure gold. He reminds me a lot of David Mamet in his kind of attitude when it comes to stuff. So he's very much kind of, I don't give a shit if your character likes peanut butter. Don't bother with it. It's nonsense because your character doesn't exist. He's lines on a page, and I love that. That's the kind of thing that kind of gets my head going. And so I'm just like, I desperately want to watch The West Wing because that's supposedly like his best piece of work. So, and it's not anywhere. Can't find it.
It would arguably be his best piece of work. I probably.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads. I mean, like bloody Social Network and An American President and all the what's the You Can't Handle the Truth? What's that one?
Old good. Yeah.
Few Good Men, but it's
Few
not.
Good Men.
Few Good Men. That's
not him.
Shut up, Hunter. Sorry.
No, that's all right. We're going to get Richard's dying to get in on this as the residence writer.
I'm gonna say, out of the corner of my eye, I could see him kind of like shaking his head when I was saying, "Oh, I really don't like," and then like nodding, like going, "Oh yeah, it's brilliant." So,
well, interestingly enough, and we might as well get our guests in it straight away. But interestingly enough, we were discussing the West. Well, I'm saying discussing. The West Wing was mentioned in our green room last week, I think it was. So why don't we get our guest? Unless you've got anything to share, Mike, like literally.
Well,
have you got some dodgy trailer for us to watch?
No, I haven't got a trailer. But last week we spoke about poetry.
Oh, we did, and I've forgotten. Have you got some poetry?
I've got something to share.
Come on, give us some. No. You do delivering the poetry.
No, I'm not delivering the poetry.
Oh well,
I've got an example of it.
That's not what we were talking about. Because the problem with the examples is we can't see it.
Well, that's why in the chat I will momentarily drop the link to it, so you could watch along.
Right. How good is it?
It's brilliant. It's posted on Twitter by a young actress called Soph. I want to say Golston.
Right.
Is the pronunciation? And she wrote a really lovely piece about the state of the arts under lockdown and basically the 1.57 billion. And it's a great 2 minutes.
2 minutes. It's 2.5 minutes long.
Yeah, we've got an hour show.
We're not playing it for 2.5 minutes.
Let me play 30 seconds of it.
Go on then.
It's great.
Well, I'll watch the first 30 seconds while you're doing it.
Right.
Birds chirping outside. Seems they're living a normal life. I slowly open my eyes and roll over onto my side to check the time. It's 8:49. Time to face another day. In the house I shall stay. What makes it worse is it isn't grey. It's actually fucking boiling outside. I venture from my bedroom downstairs and mould myself into the sofa. The bottom of my coffee meets the coaster. Change of scenery, I suppose. I can't remember when I last changed my clothes. I stare at my phone and I wait for the call. And then I got let go from my job. Because Boris is an incompetent knob. Not enough money for the arts, forgetting it's the veins to London's heart, watching the industry fall apart and become a cultural wasteland, simply because the government didn't have a plan. They failed to understand the severity of the problem at hand. All I can say is...
Right, there we go. So that's if you want to check that out, her link to the Twitter was on screen, so go have a look at the full thing. It's great.
It's really good.
It's really, really good. So
it's really, really good. I especially like the line about Boris Johnson being a knob.
Yeah, there's lots of that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, good. Check that out. We need to put that into the YouTube chat thing as well.
Well, I ain't gonna. You'll need to do that from your end.
Oh right. Okay. Do I have to do everything?
Yes.
Right.
You have to click, copy, and paste.
Right. I'm doing it now. Right. Okay. While I'm doing that, let's get the guests in.
All right. Here we go.
Very lucky to have with us today. I'm multitasking now because Mike can't be bothered to introduce you. Very lucky to have with us today actor Eve Burley and I'm writer and actor. Is that fair, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, the acting is sort of, a little bit casual, to be honest with you.
Isn't everybody's?
You've probably noticed me working with me for the last few weeks. Yeah, but I act a little bit, but mainly the writing is the focus, I suppose. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, and I saw you. So before we crack on.
It's not that kind of show.
It really isn't. Before we crack on properly, please continue that conversation with Mike about West Wing and his reference to him, David Mamet.
Yeah. It's an interesting comparison. I mean, I think that there are there are differences, but I think the sort of the common criticism of Sorkin is that it's too clever, it's too fast-paced. People can't really think at that pace. And the West Wing, I suppose, at its worst, is sort of a little bit unbelievable, a bit contrived, and the characters are simply too good to be true. But actually, I'm rewatching the West Wing. I saw it 20 years ago when it was first broadcast, and it's really, really interesting watching it now through the prism of the current political situation in America. And I think the thing with him is that it is compelling. It's what is really, really impressive is the level of research and the intelligence of his script. So really, I think he won't really care if somebody's going to call him contrived, or he's going to say that the characters are larger than life, or the characters are too unbelievable, or they're too clever. I mean, his scripts are remarkably intelligent, remarkably well researched. And for anybody who says that they sermonize, well, they might do, but he's just really good at it.
Yeah.
You know, he's really good at putting a dialectic. He's really good at putting an argument. And it's actually worth rewatching in the light of what's happening in America now. It really, you know, his depiction of a White House in the early part of the 21st century under the presidency of a liberal Democrat president is it's kind of a parallel universe that you sort of wish existed.
Yeah.
Because script writers and the actors of the West Wing were in control of the White House. I think we wouldn't be in half the messes that we're in.
I think we all agree with that. One of
the really amazing things that I was just watching. I'm about halfway through his masterclass, and today's lesson was about research and the amount he puts into it. And I was really interested. Like, he'll sign a contract, he was saying, and it'll say contract with Warner Brothers between Aaron Sorkin, and you're going to sign on for this project and deliver a draft within 12 weeks. And he says nobody pays that time scheme any bit of notice when I'm writing, you know, when I'm signing on, because it takes anything between 18 and 24 months to even start writing. Because he spends that time just interviewing people and just, you know, getting so much knowledge on any given subject. Like you were talking about on the West Wing, how he had people on set who were, you know, veterans of previous White Houses. One of the Secret Service guys who was there the day Reagan was shot. You know, the kind of guys who were actually there in these crisis moments. And, you know, little off-the-cuff things they might say on set goes into, you know, a show 2-3 series of down, you know, because it's just logged there and he knows to kind of come back to it. And he's an utter genius.
Yeah, and I think that's really, you know, if you're gonna write about politics, then do your bloody homework. You know, if you're gonna write about these things, don't just sort of. I see so much crass stuff where people kind of use received wisdom, or they think that their opinion is enough. It's not. It's not. If you're going to depict that world, then you bloody well get your roots in it and you find out about it, as he did, exhaustively. So, you know, people can accuse him of being contrived or too clever. It doesn't matter, because it is so well researched, so compelling. You can't accuse him of cutting corners, or you can accuse him of a lot of things, but the work really, really does speak for itself. You can tell I do feel quite passionate about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm probably going up on one a bit, but it's you know, it really, that idea of, you know, no, of course he's not going to deliver a script in 12 weeks, because he's going to research exhaustively. And if you're going to put the complexities of the modern political dynamics against sort of a world stage, then you do your homework. You know, you find out how these systems work, and it's lengthy and it's complex.
Can I just ask, without wanting to get into it too deeply, right now? Because it's you know, it's bordering on being like, you know, a literary festival now. There is a question I do need to ask though, and that is, my opinions aren't enough. Is that right? Because I was always told it was just sort of, my opinions were always right.
You're the actor, Lee. You do your own thing. Yeah.
Right. Lee, it depends what you want to do with them, how you want to depict them. But in broad answer, I would say no. I would say no, they're not enough. Why should I give a stuff about your opinion?
I think that's a fair point, Richard. It's absolutely.
Can we have T-shirts with that on?
Why should I about mine? You know, I mean, it's how you. The opinion is the easy part. I mean, you can come to an opinion. You know, I mean, God knows. Just go onto Twitter, you'll see plenty of opinions. Mostly incoherent, absolutist, and rubbish. It's how you then frame those opinions creatively.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts, Eve?
Yeah, wow, that was going straight in there, aren't we?
Oh yeah, there's no kind of tickling you into this interview.
No, just, you know, slowly getting in there. No.
Yeah. Good, isn't it? Great. Right. Okay. Listen. Thank you both for coming on. It's very, very much appreciated. But let's get through some of these questions, and then we can start talking more nonsense. Not that none of that was nonsense. It was just, So, let's kick off straight away. Eve, I'll start with you.
Yes,
Have you got a song for our isolation playlist?
I do. Yes, I've gone for Kate Tempest, People's Faces.
Excellent. I do think it might already be on there.
Is it? I did have a quick look, but I couldn't see it.
Oh, really? I'm sure
There
someone
wasn't
asked.
loads on there when I had a look.
Now, there is an issue. There is an issue that we had because Mike got us kicked off YouTube.
Oh, come on, Mike.
And so we lost the playlist.
Oh.
I'm not blaming Mike. It wasn't his fault, but he got us kicked off. He got us kicked off YouTube.
Well, the one you sent me today definitely didn't have it on.
Brilliant. Well, let's get it on then. Let's get it on. We can edit that bit out, can't we? Anyway, Mike.
We're live.
Oh yeah. So Kate Tempest, and why?
Well, that was actually the last live music show that I went to before lockdown last year, and it was just beautiful. She made a point to sort of say, please don't have your phones out, and that was the last song she played. And the whole place, it was at Belgrave Music Hall in Leeds, which is quite a small venue, and it was just a really beautiful moment where there was just, you could see everybody's faces, there was no mobile phones, and it just kind of stuck with me. And then I remember the very first time I got in my car once lockdown had sort of taken place to go to the supermarket, because that was the only place I could go to. It came on the radio, and I just thought, God, what an amazing song, and what people's faces can make you feel. And it was, so for me, it just kind of struck that sort of, missing people and missing people's faces, and how just seeing people just makes you smile. So that's why I picked that one.
Brilliant. Yep, that sounds like a good enough reason to me. I have, do you know what? I've lived in Leeds all my life, and I'm sure I do know where it is, but where is the Belgrade?
Oh, heck. How can I describe this? So, this is what you're going to have to go with. There's the big main road that goes up along the back, Hedgerow, is it? And it's just off there.
Okay.
If you turn off near TK Maxx.
Okay.
And it's just up there. But great little venue, really, really, really nice.
Fab.
So.
Very good. That sounds good to me. Richard, what have you got for us?
Oh, does it have to be from your playlist? Because I haven't looked at your playlist.
Oh, no. Oh, to add to the playlist.
Oh, right, okay. Cass Elliot, Make Your Own Kind of Music.
Okay. Tell me why.
Yeah. My son, as you know, because we've had a few conversations, and it's obviously the subject of a piece of work that of mine that you read recently. My son has Down syndrome and autism, and he is in a care facility not far from where we live. And every year, not just the care home that he lives in, but the chain of care homes run by a group called Hesley have this amazing Christmas concert in Tickhill Church. And it's just the most wonderfully chaotic and beautiful and loud and raucous occasion. And I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, when one of the groups performing sang Make Your Own Kind of Music. And they were singing in all sorts of different keys, and they were jumping around, and they were screeching down the microphone. And but it was wonderful, because although you could see it as chaos, I sort of saw it as something really beautiful and really special. And that lyric about make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, sung by those young people whose needs are very complex, but who can experience the world in a beautiful, spiritual and meaningful way as much as anybody else, and I think in some ways more than anybody else. That lyric really resonated, and I know Paloma Faith has done a version of it, but for me, Cass Elliot can't be beaten.
Well, it will be the Cass Elliot version that goes on there. And I assume it's Cass Elliot, that's the original version, is it?
Yeah, it is. It was just after she'd left Mamas and the Papas, and she brought out a beautiful album called Don't Call Me Mama Anymore. Or I think was this Mama's Big Ones? It was one or the other. But shortly after she left the Mamas and the Papas. And it's a terrific song.
Fantastic. Yes, we will. Well, I mean, perhaps we could talk about it a little bit now. Actually, Hunt the Tiger, which you just referred to. And am I right in saying that you had something to do with that as well, Eve?
Yes, I did.
Yes. I don't know whether we've had this conversation before. That's all. I was just looking. I was looking, or rather, what's the word? Scowling? No. Scroll? No, not scrolling. Trolling. Yeah. Your social media and then Spotlight, and it popped up, and I thought, oh, have we had that conversation before? Perhaps we have. But before I go to Richard, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Richard had said that he'd written this play, Hunt the Tiger, and was looking for actors on Facebook that might want to get involved with. It's just in a research and development stage at the time when I was working on it. And that was through Cast in Doncaster. So yeah, he was looking for actors who might be interested in getting involved and working on it, and I stuck my hand up and said, yep, definitely, because I actually know Richard from a long time ago. Richard taught me at college, so we've known each other for a very long time, but we've never worked together professionally since I left college.
Is that why you're on your best behaviour, Eve? Because at the moment you're dressed very conservatively. You're being really nice.
She hasn't sworn once.
She hasn't sworn once. That's a glass of water. I
know. Well, it does look like I'm in a pub, as we discussed, but glass of water in the house. But yeah, you've got to be on your best behaviour when you're old teachers in the Zoom, haven't you?
Yeah, I suppose so. So Richard, tell us a little bit about it, because as you know, it's a subject that's quite close to my heart as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will just say, I think Eve is sort of underselling the favour that she did me, because it was about a year ago, actually. I put the call out. Cast Theatre in Doncaster had given me a slot for a scratch night, and I'd got this script, and I wanted to show about 20 minutes of it. And I called out for volunteers because I couldn't pay anything. And when an actor says, yes, I will come over, I will give my time for nothing, other than the pleasure of being involved in it. Essentially, I always sort of feel that there is no such thing as working for nothing. If you're not getting paid for something, then you are paying to be in it. You are giving your time, and your time costs money, so you are actually paying to be in it. So it was great when a few months later I got a research and development grant from the Arts Council, and I was able to have Eve back and others and pay them properly for an R&D research and development week that we had. So yeah, the play is set in the future, and it imagines the life of the last person alive with Down syndrome, and it's a reflection on the innovations in non-invasive prenatal testing, which I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. I'm not sort of foaming at the mouth, kind of anti-choice, Alabama kind of southern states kind of Bible basher. And I don't want to stereotype people when I say that either. But my feeling is that as a parent of a young man with Down syndrome, the default position that people are taking to terminate pregnancies of children that may be different, and with Down syndrome or with other what we might loosely describe as abnormalities, I think that they're missing out. I think that they're getting duff advice, and I think that what we're on the threshold of doing is saying goodbye to a section of the population that are remarkable, that bring the best out in everyone, that perhaps certainly the experience has given me a dynamic to my life that I wouldn't change the last 22 years of being Thomas's father. And so I see the population of people with Down syndrome diminishing. In places like Denmark and Iceland, it's there have been no children born with Down syndrome for some time, and nobody can persuade me that that's a good thing. And I wonder what the world. I just I ask myself, what will the world gain? What will the world really gain if we diminish the population rather than accommodate? That's really what the play is trying to ask. Isn't it easier? Isn't it better? Isn't it beneficial to all of us to create a world where everybody can thrive rather than?
Yeah. And I think that one of the things reading it, one of the many things, obviously, was that struck me exactly this idea that where does that start and where does that end? At what point do we say, to say abnormal? We're all abnormal in some way or another, and at what point do we end up like some state? Well, like a Nazi state where we've all got blonde hair and chiseled chins and whatever it might be. I think that's really interesting. Along with something I wanted to ask you about as well, this idea in the script that starts really early on of the dynamic between the brother and sister.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to say a bit about that, Eve, since you played the sister in the research and development?
Yeah. Well, for me, that's the idea of playing the sister and having the push and pull between that for that character, because she's the head of the testing and she wants to push it forwards, and for that character, it's the push and pull of whether she's doing the right thing. She doesn't hate a brother. She doesn't hate that she's had to look after him, had him there. But there's a great line where she says to her mother, I hate what it's done to you. I've seen what it's done to you. And for me, that the push and pull of that character is just a really, really interesting thing to play. And really, really dynamic as well, because it's so fragile, that line of what is right and what is wrong. Mm-hmm. And Jo, the character, she obviously believes that what she is doing is correct, and it's
and essentially what sorry to interrupt you. Essentially what she's doing is she's involved in the research that is getting rid of this chromosome anomaly. Along with other things as well.
Yeah. So it's and I remember when I first read it, I thought, God, this is such a difficult part to play, because as much as she knows what she's doing and she's doing it for the science, it's what's the truth of the relationship with her brother and what she's had. There's some beautiful scenes, the play goes through, well, what there is at the moment of the play, from when they were younger right up until they're older, and them scenes where they're younger, they're just beautiful. And Jo, really, that relationship between them, it's just such a beautiful thing to then go and sort of do this, which is where a mother's storyline comes from. How can you go and do this? There's so many push and pulls within each character, between the dynamics of each character. It's a really interesting piece. So it was amazing to work on, and had some fantastic actors working on it for a research and development project. It's really good.
Straight over to you, Richard. Really, the same sort of question.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the premise is that we show scenes from the life of the last man alive with Down syndrome, and he has a twin sister who is a brilliant scientific researcher, and she is motivated in a way, not as Eve says quite rightly. She loves the brother, she adores the brother, but she can't help thinking that life would be easier. Her mother would have had an easier life had she not had this burden, as she sees it, in bringing Simon up. And I think that everybody who has brought a child up with complex needs, as my wife and I have done, at certain times, I would not believe anybody who said that at times they hadn't wished things to be different. But at that point, what you then are acknowledging is not that you want your child to go away, but that you actually need more help than you can give by yourself. And this, of course, is Joanna's problem, the character that Eve has played so well in the research and development of the play so far, that this is her problem, that she sort of sees that to eliminate the problem is easier than to accommodate that individual, and it's that argument between, you know, is scientific research there in order to cure, in inverted commas, to eliminate, or can it be used, as John Langdon Down, the guy who identified Down syndrome, he very clearly believed that it was there, that science was there in order to create, in order to care, and in order to push forward systems of care and how we care. That a life is meaningful. You know, we can write great tracts. We can you know, sort of devote our life to whatever it might be, and we might say of somebody like my son, who is obviously very, very limited intellectually, you know, what at the end of the day will his life amount to? A life that inspires love, Lee, is, I mean, it's priceless. You know, the worth of that life is unmeasurable, is immeasurable. It's and you know, I mean, he inspires love in spades, as do many people like him. So what I'm trying to do, I suppose, with the play is just to sort of get people to sort of say, well, you know, what, in a way, I suppose, you know, what's it all about? What do we want? What do we if we go down this track of elimination of eugenics, if you will, then something will be lost.
Yeah, and I think there is a larger point at play as well, obviously within the play, which, you know, there's some lovely moments early on where that Joe and Simon are playing the play that they have. And when you start to think that you know, as they're older, it's set in the future, and then we go back, you think about how kids play now, and it's, for the majority of kids, it's not like that. They don't play in that way. And so for me, you know, as a father, I started to question, well, you know, I know that we know the world evolves, and we have tablets, and we have, you know, computer games and all the rest of it, but do we make enough time for that kind of play, that kind of tactile exploration of life? And then it begs the question of, you know, so what does life mean? Like you've just said, you know, what is a life? What is anybody's life worth if it's just contained in this computer that we've got in front of us? Look, well, we could talk about this all night, and I would love to, but it would be a slightly different show, I think, if we did. But I really hope it continues. It's I think there are many beautiful things within it, and it's fab, and I really like the premise of it, and the setup as well. I think is really, really nice. It's complicated, Richard. It moves around a lot.
Yeah. The process of revising that, so you know, you read it as a. I mean, even though I've been working on it for a couple of years, you know, I mean, these things. It's an interesting thing. But, I mean, you know, given that I imagine that your listeners are mainly sort of artists. Anything that I've ever done that was worthwhile took years. You know, it took bloody years. And I'm 57 goddamn years old, and I'm worried about running out of time, you know? So nothing I ever did was done that was worth a damn was done quickly.
Well, I mean, I'll just reiterate, I think this is worth a damn, definitely, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that think that too. So, however long it takes, long may that continue. Okay, look, let's move on to something a little more frivolous. If indeed, you know, I think there's something quite frivolous about the play itself, actually, if I may say so. I think there's lots of lovely frivolous moments in it. However, Richard, just sticking with you. What's the most, because we might be going into another lockdown, who knows? But the last lockdown, what's the most coronavirus thing you've done?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I just got the news today, and I don't want to darken the mood, but I got the news today that Thomas's care home is in lockdown, so we can't bring it home
Right.
for the foreseeable, which is bad news. You know, we didn't see him for 5 months between March and July, so I don't know how long it's going to be this time. But I think that the two answers to that, Lee. I think that one of the wonderful things that happened during that period of time was that so many friends that I got in touch with, knowing that we couldn't bring Thomas home, wrote to him, sent him little gifts, sent him postcards, sent him pictures. Children drew pictures. They emailed him, and he's got literally hundreds and hundreds of letters and cards. So I'm going to put an appeal out later, either tonight, tomorrow, to start doing that again. You know, because we don't know how long he's going to be in lockdown for. So that was, that was one thing. But then the other thing was, I live in a sort of fairly rural community, and I got stuck into a bit of local volunteering actually, and we formed a group, and we called ourselves the COVID-19 response group to the region that we live in, and we organised volunteers to partner up with elderly vulnerable people or vulnerable people on where I live, in this strange part of the world in Lincolnshire called the Isle of Axome. And Eve knows it because she comes from near here, and we got so many volunteers. We actually got more volunteers than vulnerable people to match them up with. So that we just ensured that they got their prescriptions picked up, that somebody went and did their shopping for them if needs to, and they had a chat with somebody on the end of a phone. So we're keeping this volunteer group going, throughout the current pandemic, but also beyond it. So I think those two things, not humorous, I'm afraid, Lee.
Doesn't need to be humorous.
But really good, really good things that came out of this horrible situation.
Yeah. No, it absolutely doesn't need to be humorous. It just reminds us that, I'm a terrible human being.
You didn't need a pandemic to realise that, though, Lee.
No, I didn't need that. Although I will say that if you're going to set up a COVID response thing anywhere, it should be in the axis of evil.
Yes, it does sound a bit like that, doesn't it? I mean, I love this. I've lived this for quite some time, and I do love it, but it is quite odd. I will, it's a much flat North Lincolnshire, and it's a bit strange. It's a bit.
We have some extended family sort of Lincolnshire way, and I will say it's a little strange out there, but it's lovely. It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's a little odd. Good.
Swathes
okay,
of Lincolnshire have just turned off.
Yeah.
I don't think the reach spreads that far. I really don't. But maybe it does. Who knows? Welcome.
If my mum and dad are watching, they're in Lincolnshire, so it could be.
I'm terribly sorry. Lovely people.
No, I love it. I come from Lincolnshire. I've got, but it's just odd. It's just odd in a good way, but odd.
I do think, having said that, I do think there are a number of people who live in Lincolnshire who actually just say that because they don't want to say they're from Hull.
Oh, well, I'm not going to. The idea of, because Hull is East Yorkshire, and the battle to get rid of Humberside, which raged 20 years ago, it was sort of our local Brexit, really.
And now you've just got Brexit.
I know. I've done it now, and I live in a 70% Brexit area, so I'll probably get some dead effigies sort of through the.
Fair enough. Okay.
I'm going to blink it through the night,
Bricks through the window. So Eve, most coronavirus thing.
I sort of really went for everything that everybody was doing. I was one of them people. So after I'd done Tidy King, I got that out of the way with.
Volunteering.
It was all making bread, walking loads, doing my garden. I was on it. I was on Instagram looking what people were doing, and then the following day trying it, but miserably. Yeah, especially the bread baking, terrible. But yeah, and then as it sort of progressed and I started to get a bit more worried about it, I started that whole cleaning my shopping when I got back from the shops.
Yeah.
which I must admit I've got pretty lazy with recently, but it might be starting up again. You know, just one of those things, isn't it? But yeah, I think, yeah, I tried it all. Why not? I had plenty of time on my hands.
It was the Dettol spray that I was introduced to. I'd never seen this stuff before, but then the Dettol spray is now a staple in the house. But you could just spray it on. You don't have to wipe anything down.
You don't wipe it, just spray it.
Yeah,
it's ideal, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Somehow, I feel like it's half a job. I like to actually wipe it, and then I feel like it's done properly. Do you know what I mean? If you spray it, you might miss a bit. At least if you wiped it, you've covered all areas.
Half a job tends to be my middle name, so that I'm all right with that. I'm okay.
I'll tell you what's quite funny though. That happened today is we got into the habit of taking my daughter out twice a day. When we were only allowed to go out once, I'd go out in the morning and take my daughter, then my wife would go out in the afternoon and take my daughter. So we've got into this habit. And whenever she comes home, we always sterilise her hands, with the alcohol rub kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I did that today when she came home. And then she'd got, like, some muck under her nail. And so I was trying to get it out with, like, a wet wipe and my finger and stuff. And my wife says, "What are you doing that for? Her hands are sterile." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You've just sterilised them and now you've wiped them with that." And I'm like, "Yeah, the object isn't to, like, permanently have her sterile. Otherwise we'd just stick her in a bubble. The object is to kind of clean her hands from, like, touching all the shit in the park, and not the actual shit, but the stuff in the park, and to get the COVID off with the steriliser, and then she can carry on and touch all the shit in our house and get her hands just as grubby.
I think the park's the worst one, because my partner has a 5-year-old, and we didn't obviously go to the park, and then they opened up, and we went to the park just this weekend, and I was there with my, like, hand sanitizer. Anytime she coughed something, I was like, hand sanitizer, and then my partner was going, "She's gonna get back on the next thing though," and I was like, "Well, you can't be too safe, can you? Just get some more on. Just hand sanitize every time." So yeah, it's just one of them things, isn't it?
Well, you say that. I did see a message quite recently from somebody who wanted to go and fumigate an entire field.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
Burn it. I mean,
Oh, yeah, maybe that's what they meant. Like, just napalm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, the B-52s could be really useful.
Don't give him any ideas.
Jason was a real ticket pastime in the late 1960s in Vietnam. They got really good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. Excellent. So, Eve, sticking with you then, what was the last thing, other than the job that we're working on before COVID? What was the last thing you said to a live audience?
Pear on spoon in mouth. Sounds so random, doesn't it? So that
Mike's ears pricked up then. he got slightly excited.
Yeah. So that was my last line in a play, which was Absurd Person Singular, which was on in January at the Lawrence Batley Theatre. So we did it over in New York in December, and then it came back to Huddersfield, Lawrence Batley, and we did it there for 3 shows in January. And then obviously chaos kicked off and lockdown and stuff. So so that was a bit of a shame, because I had a couple more jobs booked in with them guys. Pear on spoon in mouth.
And what was the character? Pear on spoon in mouth. Yeah. And what was the character called?
That was Jane Hopcroft.
Hopcroft.
Yeah, the play's set over 3 Christmases, over 3 years, and it's like the Hopcrofts start off,
Hopcroft buns.
Hopcrofts, yeah. So it's the rise of the Hopcrofts. So at the end, the husband is sort of dictating them all playing this Christmas game, where Jane Hopcroft is sort of running around and getting them to do strange things like putting spoons in the mouth and then having pears on them. So yeah.
Okay. Sounds intriguing.
Bonkers.
A little bit. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Richard, the last thing either you said to a live audience, or the last thing you wrote that was said to a live audience?
Oh, God, that's a good one. Well, I won't. I don't think I'll include the sort of scratch night and the R&D stuff that I've done on Hunt the Tiger, which is sort of the most most recent work, obviously. No, I think I was the last time I acted sort of properly, I suppose, was in I was in a production of The Dresser in Hull, and so the last words that I said in front of a live audience were "My life will have to do," which is the last line before he snuffs it. Yeah, so that was February 2019. So that sort of shows how long it is since I've actually sort of done anything on stage. But that, yeah,
It's not that long ago. Not really. Not in the current climate.
I guess I guess not. My life will have to do. Yeah.
Very good. And while we're on this subject, and I'll stick with you, Richard. Favorite moment, favorite industry moment, and this could be a wow moment. It could be just a moment that you thought, oh, that's where something happened that it meant a lot to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to cop out of the question, but I suppose there's a couple really. 5 years ago, I wrote a play called Dancing Through the Shadows, which was on at Hull Truck for a month, and it was a play set in Hull during the Second World War. And it was very, very special because I used some of my own sort of family's experiences and recollections of the Second World War, to write the play. And also, what was Hull. If you know Hull, if you've worked in Hull, Hull is not an easy place to get an audience. Hull people will turn out if there's a reason for them to turn. They won't just sort of turn out speculatively. They kind of need a reason. And what I think it was sort of one of the most kind of gratifying moments of my life, really, sort of seeing people walk through those doors. That it was the most successful new play that had been put on at Hull Truck since the building opened in 2009. And people in their 80s and 90s walking through that door to see their story. The people that had lived through the Blitz, and who some of whom had not been to the theatre before, some of whom had not been to Hull Truck, and they came and they kind of claimed it as theirs. It was their story, and they came through, and that was obviously that was unbelievably moving and wonderful. And then I suppose I would equal that to some extent was when my one and only foray into the West End as a playwright in 2013 with American Justice, and it was pretty nerve-wracking. But when you have Michael Billington, Charlie Spencer, Libby Purvis, et al., the sort of the nation's kind of top reviewers, as it were, sort of sitting watching your work, you kind of have a bit of a double take moment.
Were they kind to you?
Mostly they were, yeah. Mostly they were, yeah. Libby Purvis from the Times was very, very kind. The Evening Standard reviewer, who's so well known, I can't remember her name. She was also very kind. Charlie Spencer from the Telegraph was kind. Michael Billington was kind. One or two weren't. The fat ass from the Financial Times, Ian Shuttleworth, twat, he wasn't. And the guy from the stage, well, I mean, as somebody, Tim Fountain, who's a playwright, is a mate of mine. When I said, I'm a bit upset by this review from the stage, he said, don't worry about it. He said, a good review from the stage is the only thing more useless than the Pope's bollocks.
Oh, God bless you.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Who knows? Having said that, with the scandal surrounding the church at the moment, who knows? Good. All right, Eve.
Yes, similar. I've got a couple. One of my main wow moments though was so I started work on a project which was called One Hand Clapping, which it kind of spanned over 2 years, from rehearsal right until the last performance. So we started it at the Burgess Foundation in Manchester. One Hand Clapping is an Anthony Burgess novel, and it was the writer was asked to write the play from the novel. So she came to me and said, "Oh, I've got this brilliant novel. The character in it, Janet Shirley, you'd be brilliant at it. Do you want to have a read and see what you think?" So yeah. So I said, yeah. Anyway, we put it on at the Burgess Foundation for 3 performances, which they all sold out, and then it got taken to Lowry when they were doing the Replay Festival. Then after that, it went to Bolton Octagon. We took it down to London, and actually, I think it was a Bolton Octagon show. We had somebody come over from Brits Off Broadway, which is 59 East 59 Theatre in New York, and they have a season every year where they have a month of British shows. They come over and handpick what they want to put on, and yeah, we found out that they wanted to take the show. So it was just a phenomenal process to go from the very beginning at the Burgess Foundation, you know, using Anthony Burgess's furniture as the bookcase and stuff, to then get all the way 2 years down the line and have it on in New York. And, you know, similarly, we had, I mean, the shows sell so well at 59 East 59. It's Upper East Side, and the play was perfect for the demographic that they get in the theatre there. And so we were selling out. We had New York Times came to review. So, you know, but the whole process, the group that I was working with, it was just such a lovely natural process over 2 years, and to sort of like have them breaks in between where we didn't work on it and then come back together to do the next set of performances. It was just a really, really lovely experience. And then obviously to end in New York, it was the first time I'd even been over to America, and that was in 2015. So it was just, yeah, a really kind of like, wow, this is good.
I saw that at the Lowry. And it was terrific. And Eve was terrific in it.
Thank you.
So, oh, shut up. So you've been to New York twice with the play, then?
Yeah. So one
Mike, just
what?
get rid of her. I've had enough. Get rid of her.
Sorry.
Get rid of her.
I mean, has she been to Ireland for a month and been really drunk with the play?
Not Ireland.
She hasn't done that, has she, Mike? That's
No,
the thing.
I think, you know, that's definitely your New York.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, so then the second one was last year, and that was we played Theatre Row for the month of Christmas, because Absurd Personal Singular, which is the Alan Ayckbourn play, it's set over Christmas, so it was kind of like the perfect show to have on. And the Americans just love the Brits. They love the British stuff and the sense of humour, and you know, like it's great when you're on stage and you're using really English. Like, even there was a line in the play where I had to say, "I've got a chocolate Father Christmas." And they just thought it was absolutely hilarious, because they never say Father Christmas, you know, they say Santa. And so it's just that, you know, real lovely moments where you totally realise where you are in that moment. It's just, yeah, it's really nice. It's good fun.
I'll tell you what, Mike, them two, those four, despite the fact that I only asked for one, those four special moments that they came out, they've got to be up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're knocking Champions League spots with those four.
I think we are. Yeah, and it's, you know, I occasionally I do say this is a little bit like the South Bank show, and you know, I think that's a fair review.
To be fair, I mean, it's knocked peeking under a tarp and finding the Millennium Falcon down to 5th for me.
No, it's not. It isn't. It isn't. That's
sorry, Joe,
that's up
watching.
There. That's up there, is that?
Yeah. Especially,
Joe did
considering it's like, oh yeah, I'm filming Emmerdale. Here's the Millennium Falcon. It's just such a no diss to Emmerdale, because it's fantastic, but
and he
it's a
did take
different
the piss
scale.
out of me on social media early on today. So go bollocks, Joe. As far as I'm concerned. Good. Okay. Favourite moments. Brilliant. Now, where should we go next? Let's go. While we're on the industry, let's talk about the industry. Eve, what are your hopes and fears?
Oh.
Although, sorry, just bearing in mind that at the top of the show, although I'm not sure he did it, but I wasn't really listening. Did you do your patter at the top of the show, Mike?
I did, yes.
Oh yeah, I remember now. It was really good.
I'm just muting because my boiler's just started to dick about.
It's no way to talk about your wife. So let's concentrate on hopes rather than fears.
Okay. Well, I hope that theatre. I mean, I work in both theatre and TV and commercial, so it's for me though. Like theatre, I just want it to be back to normal. I want live performance. That nothing beats it for me. It's that moment of sitting in the auditorium, or the coming onto the stage for your first moment. That feeling. You just can't replace it. And so, yeah, I want it to get back to normal, but I obviously want everybody to stay safe. I mean, for me, though, self-tapes, they can stay the same. That's so much nicer just doing it in your pants and, get your top half ready and then have your pants on. But it's that thing of, it's so much easier than schlepping all the way to a rehearsal, to an audition space, and at least you get a couple of goes. And although sometimes I must admit I do about 100 takes and then use like the second one, and I'm like, why have I just done that to myself? Why did I do that? But yeah, so I mean some things I suppose could stay the same for me with regards to that, but theatre, my hope is that at some point next year things get more back to normal. And I mean, now theatres are opening up and having socially distanced performances, which I know some people have been going to see and stuff. So yeah, that's my hope. But...
Yeah, we went to the theatre a couple of years ago. We did go to the theatre last week, I think it was. So
not
that
me
was
and
nice.
Lee.
No, not us.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
How did it feel? Did it feel? How did it feel? Did it feel normal?
Absolutely fine. Yeah, it felt fine. It felt normal. I mean, the type of show that it was studio space. There weren't many audience members anyway, so it didn't feel. It didn't feel odd in any way. I didn't particularly like the play, but that's fine. Whatever. But I was really pleased to read last week that the lottery are starting this funding for the Panto, and thank God, thank God that Nigel Havers and Julian Clary and Diversity are all going to get work this Christmas. Thank God that the Palladium are managing to sell their Panto, because I was worried. I was really concerned that Julian and Nigel weren't going to have a very nice Christmas, so it's good. Good.
I mean, there's not been that much voiceover work for Julian either, so not just
absolutely.
It just seems to be on everything.
Yeah, so fingers crossed. That the other massive pantos that usually make millions are able to go on. I jest, obviously. It's hopefully that the lottery grant that they're sending out will trickle down to the regional theatres, let's say, and hopefully we can get things moving. I do wonder what the new normal is going to be like, though. I think it's Richard, thoughts?
Yeah, well, I hope it comes back better. It is a very worrying time, and I am, I think, concerned that that if this thing changes anything, that we might get rid of some of the cronyism, that we might actually sort of pare things back and start looking at what we really want theatre to be and how we involve people who are disenfranchised and not involved. I think we focus an awful lot on buildings, and maybe that's right, and maybe obviously we do need theatre buildings, we need stages, but we need artists, and we need artists from a variety of sections of the community, and I don't think that we're always getting them. And I think I don't want to go off message too much, but I think that we have a wrong-headed notion of diversity. Sometimes diversity becomes a box-ticking exercise. It becomes tokenism, and it becomes something which organisations show to prove their worth rather than actually focusing on the work. And we need to find the work. We need to we need to get to a point, where we are employing disabled actors not because they're disabled, but because they're great actors. We're not doing it to prove how woke we are, and how, I mean, there was a theatre in London. I'm not going to say which one. It was one of the leading fringe theatres. I've done a bit of work there some time ago, and its proud boast for the new season 18 months or so ago was that every one of their playwrights was a woman. Now that to me is deeply patronising to women, first of all.
Yeah.
Because where is the virtue? What about the work? Who is to say that the work includes and involves and is about? I mean, it may be a woman playwright, but does that mean that it's necessarily any good? Does that mean that the plays themselves are pursuing an equality agenda? Sorry, I've gone slightly off message, but
No, I understand what you mean.
I want it to come back better. I want it to come back stronger, and I want it to be, inclusive. Is to include is easy. To involve, properly involve, that takes some guts. And I want a bit of this disparity between the amount of money that's spent in the south and the home counties. You look at what the Arts Council focus on London, and the difference between that and I mean, you're in Leeds, I'm further east, and that it barely bears comparison. It bears no comparison.
No. I echo that. I echo that sentiment in so much as that, you're right about it's easy to involve, but I wonder whether what I hope is that actually, along with the changes, especially with the diversity drive, that actually what we don't get are the same old heads, the same old gatekeepers just saying, okay, well now I will involve this because I'm protecting myself. Because I accept as a middle-aged white actor, I accept that not my career is over by any stretch. I've had it good, and I accept that there are going to be less opportunities for me, and that's probably right, absolutely right. But what concerns me is that you have the same gatekeepers that peddle the same message, but just add, some female or some BAME voices to it and say, look how wonderful I am. So I hope it's inclusive from that point of view.
I think the gatekeepers sort of are almost, they are old white men like you and me. I'm a good deal older than you.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's and their reaction almost seems to be, well, I must get people involved in my theatre who don't remind me of me, to prove how right on I am, to prove how we take diversity seriously. And of course, it's the antithesis of that. It becomes a box ticking exercise and an exercise in self-aggrandizement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Were you wanting to add something to that, Eve?
No, I was just thinking as well about audiences. I was having a discussion actually when we was at work the other day with somebody about how theatre is inaccessible to some families, and we were discussing that and how that may change going forward. I mean, I went to see something at the weekend which you didn't have to pay for, you just donated. And there was loads of families there, and families that probably wouldn't have gone to see it if it was in the theatre and you had to pay. Some of these shows, it's costing families like family of £400+ to go and see these shows. How is that inclusive So for me, I hope that changes, because there's, that's what we want to do. We want to include everyone and get people watching stuff and seeing stuff, and so if that could change, that would be good as well.
Absolutely right. Okay, look, it's 9:05 and I've kept you long enough, so I've got two more questions left, and the first one, and I'll stay with you, Eve, at the height of lockdown, how many toilet rolls did you have in the house?
Oh God, I didn't have. I had to borrow some off the neighbour. I was literally like.
I got a minute. Were you literally sort of, because I never know, and it's at the very last moment when I'm suddenly going, there's no toilet roll. Were you like that?
No, because I'm in control of toilet roll buying, but I always do it last minute. It's that, all right, we're down to one loo roll, that's fine. And I just kind of thought, oh, do you know, like, it'll be fine. I don't think people are going as crazy for the toilet rolls as it looks like they are on social media. I was wrong. And so yeah, it was that awkward moment of Facebooking my neighbour, because we had like a couple of the neighbours on my street had like a little WhatsApp where it was like, you know, pop in for the shop, anybody need anything? So I was just like, I'm really sorry, can I borrow some toilet rolls? So it was just left on my doorstep for me, and I was like, lifesaver. But yeah, it was quite a stressful day, that one. But you know, I wasn't hoarding, so.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, all right, Richard, what we talking?
Well, I can't remember how many, but I will say that we tend to sort of buy most things in bulk anyway. So ever before lockdown and the surprise, we probably ever before lockdown and the shortage, we probably had about sort of 30-40 how we do things. But the other,
I need to take a note from that, I think.
So we tend to buy in bulk and then sort of use them over the next few months. So we never noticed that, you know, by the time we'd run out of that, you know, there was no longer a scare. But the other thing is very important is that I am the proud possessor of a bidet.
Oh.
So I didn't care.
And yet you still had 40 toilet rolls.
Yeah. There's something wrong in the world.
Yeah.
Sort of bulk buy from Aldi or whatever. So we always have a good stock, and we did that ever before lockdown and the shortage anyway. So.
Well, you see, you've got a bidet, which is impressive. My parents actually moved into a new house and they took their bidet out, and I said, "What are you doing?
Right.
Why are you doing that? They've left you one. You just keep it." But I had a friend of mine, Rosina, on many moons ago. It feels like now, sort of episode 8 or something it was, and she's just got one of those Japanese toilets, you know that.
Oh yeah.
Control on that does it all for you. Yeah.
There's ones now that recognise who it is when you sit down. So it adjusts itself to the right angle. And
Just the level too far, that, isn't it?
When I first heard of this, I was like, under what circumstances is that ever necessary? But when you look at kind of like the Apple iWatch, the iWatch, is that even what it's called? Fitbits, all that kind of stuff. If you're wanting to monitor certain things, that kind of feels very handy. You're accessing information that you might not necessarily be able to.
Yeah, but for what purpose?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah.
Well, there's all sorts of, you know, the kind of weight thing of kind of, you know, whenever you weigh yourself, you've kind of got. Was that a pound? Was that a pound and a half? Was it?
So just out of interest, does this toilet link to your Fitbit?
Yeah, it's a Bluetooth toilet seat, and you have your own particular kind of setting. So the temperature, the water, the angle at which it's shot, the speed, all that kind of stuff. In terms of the practicality of it, but it's the idea that you just have to sit down and it recognises you.
Does it welcome you when you sit down?
Well, the thing I learned it from is a podcast called No Such Thing as a Fish, which is it's a massive one. It's the QI elves. And at the beginning of every episode, there is a little Japanese kind of electronic voice, which is a bath telling you, hello, your bath's ready, kind of thing. So I imagine that this the toilet seat is probably a similarly polite and welcoming.
I mean, they could extend this, couldn't they? I mean, sort of app recognition could be the way that you pay for your groceries.
I think it's a great idea.
You know, you just drop your keks and get through.
Forget retinol. Forget retinol.
I mean, it reminds me of a saying my dad used to say. When he'd always be like, if so-and-so is true, I'm going to show my ass in Woolworths window. The guy was way ahead of his time.
Absolutely. It's maybe the way we get things done.
Yeah. He was just paying for his pick and mix.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing.
His copy of MC Hammer's You Can't Touch This.
Yeah. Okay, and final question to you both. I'll stick with you, Eve. Although I think you might have answered this question already. What has been your vice? What got you through lockdown?
Oh, probably actually gardening, which I never did. I didn't do any gardening before lockdown, but I became like avid gardener, watching Gardener's World on a Friday night. I was into it. And actually, I think if I hadn't have had the garden and the outside space, like, felt so lucky to have that in lockdown. I mean, I live somewhere quite rural anyway, but the garden, if I hadn't have had that, and just, it really, really got me through and just made me feel more positive, and it was lovely. So me garden.
Okay, all right.
Nice
We'll stay clear of the alcohol then. Richard, vice?
Alcohol got me through. Similarly, I mean, I live in a pretty rural part of the world with lots of nice walks and that sort of thing. So it's very, very lucky. I mean, and I do say that genuinely because, if I'd had small kids and had been in a flat or somewhere urban, it must be hell. I was very, very lucky. We live in a pleasant part of the world with plenty of walks, so I was able to sort of deal with it like that. I'm famously unsociable anyway. I'm somebody that enjoys his own company, if I can put it that way. So it didn't bother me too much, but I mean, it was something of a luxury. But I mean, I got on the whole lockdown lard. Yeah, that was me. I mean, Bronwyn was off work. My wife, she's a school teacher, so she wasn't. She was sort of working online, but she is a terrific baker. So I unfortunately I sampled much of the product, and rather enjoyed the couple of glasses of wine, a glass of scotch, and put on the old lockdown lard, which I have been fundamentally unsuccessful in trying to shift. Slowly.
It happens to the best of us, I think. It happens to the best of us. Listen, both of you, I know we've all got early mornings. Although, you not so much, Richard. You haven't got as far to travel. But we've got early mornings, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
It's actually, I mean, I knew you'd be great, Richard, but I was a little bit worried about Eve. And actually, it's been fine. So we're going to wrap the show up, but by all means, stay on if you want to. We could have a quick chat afterwards, but feel free to log off. We'll just wrap up. I'll see you both in the morning. But lovely to talk. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night. Bye now. Bye-bye.
That was a good one, Mike.
Yeah. I like it when, there's occasion when we get a little bit heavy. I like that. When we actually talk, as artistic people, when we actually talk about art. I like that.
Yeah. It does start to worry me slightly because I'm just not sure I can keep the longevity of that. I'm not sure I can keep that up. I can't.
Your GCSE in English Lit kind of falters at a certain point.
yeah, absolutely. Did I even get a GCSE in English Lit? I'm not sure. I'll have you know, I'm a very educated man. I have a first-class degree, Michael.
Yeah.
It might be a first-class degree in pretending, but it's still a first-class degree.
Yeah, I tell you, pretending is really hard. As somebody who has tried pretending, and used to get good grades at university for pretending, award-winning. And it's not easy.
No, it's not easy to keep it up.
No.
Listen, we've got a show next week again, Mike.
Have we? Jesus.
We have. Yeah, and I think we're on episode 38. Episode 38. Who'd have thought that? At some point, I'll get some more podcasts out, but God knows when I'm going to get around to that. But we have got an episode next week, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I have got a very early morning. I've got a 6:30 start tomorrow, so I have to wrap up.
wrap up the show or just wrap up because it's cold?
Just wrap up life, wrap up the day. Yeah, wrap up the show. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, it's been great. We've had plenty of people in the chat. Thank you very much for that. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in live. Don't forget, if you have missed anything, go back on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch. You can rewatch everything. Give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, hit a notification bell. Do everything that normal people ask you to do on the internet, because it really helps us out. And we're still trying to get back to our previous subscriber levels prior to me getting us kicked off YouTube for being socially conscious. YouTube. But thank you. It's been wonderful. I do miss it when we don't do a live show, and it's been nice to have a bit of a run at those. Great. So hello, Sarah. She was in. I noticed. Sarah
and not very sweary tonight either.
Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker.
Oh, Mike.
They're the 7 words that are from George Carlin. So there you go. Thanks very much. Roll the titles.